Hello friends, journeymen, fellow fathers. My name is Brad Mulvey, and welcome to the World Class Dads Podcast, where we explore fatherhood with the world's top performers to learn how they integrate being amazing dads with their pursuit of world-class achievement. Oftentimes, I bring guests onto the show who you may already know of and follow, guys with hundreds of thousands and maybe even millions of followers, like Green Beret sniper and entrepreneur Tim Kennedy, powerlifting icon Mark Bell, thought leaders like Rob Wolf, Kelly Starrett, Hal Elrod, and Kevin Kelly, Joe DeSena, the list goes on and on. But today's guest, I will have the honor and distinct pleasure of introducing many of you to him for the first time. And it's an honor that I hope is remembered as he emerges as a top thought leader for men, fathers, and entrepreneurs alike. You see, he spent much of his career to this point heads down, building his own legendary businesses that are first in class in their respective fields, but has just recently begun spending more time in the role of teacher and public figure. Nick Dadas is a dedicated husband and father, entrepreneur, podcaster, athlete, and adventurer. In 2003, while still in college, Nick co-founded University Tees. The company has gone on to grow into the premier custom apparel brand for the college market and has also expanded in the corporate market. Nick is also the co-founder of the ISI Life and hosts the ISI Life Podcast, ISI here standing for Iron Sharpens Iron, which both have a mission to help equip others to achieve excellence within the 5 disciplines of faith, family, faculty, finances, and fitness. He's also the co-founder of MasterPlan Coaching for entrepreneurs. I had the blind dumb luck or maybe divine intervention to be introduced to Nick a few years back and can honestly say that he is one of the most inspiring men in my social media feed, my contact list, and my life. He lives in complete alignment with his purpose, building epic businesses and inspiring folks all around him, but consistently shows up for his family as a husband, dad, brother, son, uncle, etc. So I'm honored to have him on today. I know you guys will enjoy this one, and we'll be following his stuff over at ISI in no time. Also, if you enjoy this episode, please let me know by leaving a rating or review. And being a little bit of a different take on this episode where our guest is absolutely world-class at his craft and in his role as dad, but not as universally known yet. I'd love your feedback on this type of episode. So feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram with any thoughts, feedback, etc. I'm at Brad Mulvey. Also recently started another page at World Class Dads for the podcast. And my last announcement real quick, I'm getting a bit more active on the Clubhouse app for those of you who have played around with that at all. Me and a couple of other dads are getting together every Wednesday night at 7:30 Eastern. So feel free to find me on there at Brad Mulvey, again, on the Clubhouse app, and you'll be able to drop into that room or anytime you see me on there, and just ping me, say hello. Would love to chat. It's all audio based, so we can essentially talk as if it's a conference call, or you can just listen in on the other conversations that either I'm listening in on or that I'm actually speaking on. I've already had a chance to speak with a few of you on there, and it's been a lot of fun. All right, well, you guys aren't here to listen to me go on and on, so let's get into the episode with my friend and mentor, the wise and wonderful Nick Dadas. My man, Nick Dadas, here on the World Class Dads Podcast. Nick, thanks for hopping on, man.
Dude, awesome to be with you, man. Feel honored to be with you and have a conversation.
Well, you've been an inspiration in my life on many fronts, but fatherhood is definitely one of them. And I think that some of the things that I've at least witnessed from the outside, you exposing your kids to, and just your approach to family in general, I think is a very awesome way of going about it. So this just gives me a platform to ask you those rapid fire questions that might be more awkward in our natural conversations. So it's a totally selfish endeavor on my part.
No, it's all good. Hey, I'm kind of learning on the fly as we go here. So, but hopefully, have some good stuff to dive in on.
I think so. So just for the listener's background, would you mind just giving a quick high-level overview of, who you are, what you do professionally, the things you do professionally, I should say, that have brought you to this point in life?
Yeah, for sure. Start off married to my wife, Nancy, for going on 11 years. We have 3 boys, twins that are 5, and another little dude who's 1. So 3 boys. And, Nancy's been a huge part of everything we'll talk about here in a little bit, but definitely have taken the entrepreneurial route in terms of profession. It's got a chance to start a company in college called University Tees, which has, helped shape a lot of the leadership and entrepreneurial skills and endeavors that we've kind of followed. And I've led to being in that business for almost 20 years, which is crazy to think about. Because I was originally thought I'd be like a professional golfer. So pretty far from that. But that's what we're doing. And then, out of that, some other things have come. We have an awesome, I'd call it a ministry called Iron Sharpens Iron, where we're helping guys, in the 5, kind of like 5 main areas of their life. We call it the 5 Fs. And then also doing some coaching, using some of the skills that we've learned along the way to pour back into something called MasterPlan Coaching. And so, just kind of doing our thing, but also trying to share what we've learned along the way and help others. And part of our company purpose is we call develop people and change lives. And really, it's a personal motto too, that, I'm trying to do whatever I can to make myself better, but also help others along the way. So that's a little bit about us, and might, enjoy in every episode of the World Class Dads podcast. So that's one of my things I do when I'm not working, is listen to the World Class Dads podcast.
No, thanks for that background. That's awesome, dude. And that's awesome that you've been tuning into the show. I can't speak highly enough. We'll touch on of ISI, Iron Sharpens Iron. We'll definitely get to that in this conversation. As you know, I've been a participant in some of the retreats that you've done and some of the online get-togethers and stuff. Awesome organization. And we got originally connected based on some of the stuff you're doing professionally, and you were on the Millennial Mastermind back in the old days to talk about that. So that podcast episode is still out there if people want to hear a little bit more about kind of your workings on the business front, which your approach to entrepreneurship is inspiring in its own right and was obviously worth that conversation. So you had started the business, though, University Tees, your first business in college. So where were you in that journey when kids came into the picture for you and Nancy?
Well, the twins showed up on the scene in 2015. So we were, I'd say very, very far into the business. Mm-hmm. I'd say it was, thankfully it was at a more mature state where we had team members, and we had, multiple people that, work for the business. So we were able to kind of keep the business, running, but also kind of step aside for a little bit to take care of Nancy. And, twins kind of rocked our world. I had never changed a diaper until the hospital. And then I quickly learned very fast, changing 2 boys, so we were at that age. I was, I was 34 when the boys were born. And so it was awesome, man. But it was pretty serious. My brother had twins as well. So we kind of just got thrown into it, and thankfully I had some people there around me to really learn from and understand like what to do and how to do it. And Nancy was awesome, and everybody was just really big support system to kind of help us with that launch into being parents.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The twins just running in the family. So when you entered that stage of life and you were obviously still running the business, and then you have twins all of a sudden in the household, how did that kind of shake things up, and how did you approach balancing running your company, but also, being a dad and being around and helping out with raising the kids?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough at first, for sure. It's like, because we were prepping for it, so we kind of knew what life was going to be like ahead of time. We knew it was going to be a full on, round the clock type thing. So it was a lot of, we intentionally stepped aside and, make sure people knew that, hey, we're pretty much going to be MIA for a little bit, give it 3 months, give it 4 months too. So we had some time. Luckily, babies, don't form overnight. So we had a little bit of time to kind of get our ducks in a row and get, people in place and, put ourselves in positions where our company wasn't, reliant on our day to day moving the train down the tracks. So, I think we did a lot to like get that set up, but we were still, luckily at first, the babies sleep, well, a lot. They take a lot of naps at the get go. So we were, filling in it was in the gaps. It was, an hour here, 2 hours there. And it's crazy how you just become more focused when you have to be. And in some ways, having the twins really taught me a lot about how to make sure you're doing the important things, and you realize that there's so much fluff and garbage in your schedule that it's almost like you're just like squeezed. And, when you're squeezed, what comes out? Well, we were squeezed for time and energy. So when we worked, we made sure it was the important things. We were just only working on things that were, necessary and important, and everything else just got put on pause, got put on the back burner, because our number one job at that time was to, help Nancy recover and get the kids up and going and, on a good path.
Yeah, I love that. And how's that? Has that kind of maintained? Did that stick around where any of that unimportant stuff, you just were able to really keep that off the calendar, and you still maintain that sort of critical activity focus on the work front, and then just making sure that because now you've got crew who's just over a year, so may have gone through a similar process. But I'm just curious if that stuck, that process of really focusing on those most important business activities, at least.
Yeah, I've better or worse, I've always been a deadline person where having pressure helps me do better, and so I think having a deadline or having a baby that shows up has helped me become sharper and become better. And when they came, and a lot of that stuff went to the wayside, but when I had the ability, once things kind of like leveled out, we kind of got our arms around what was needed, and we were able to kind of like spend more time working if we wanted to. You go in with such a critical eye. I think I don't want to just add back a bunch of randomness to my schedule. So if there was more time, it was to make sure that it was stuff that was impactful, we were passionate about doing. So it definitely gave us a critical eye to not just add back, things, but the things that really actually mattered, for sure. And I think this year, especially with being restricted again with another baby and COVID and lack of childcare help, again, it's like the same thing. You went through and say, hey, if I got less time to do my things, what are the most important things to do? If you shrink your schedule down to half its size, how do you make sure the most important things get taken care of? So it's those are blessings in disguise.
Yeah, and it's a great thought exercise too. Even if you aren't going through that actively in your life, but just to go through that exercise of like, okay, let's pretend for a minute that I did have half the time. What can I cut out? I like that. Just even on a weekly basis, you could probably do that and look at your calendar and see, all right, what are really those critical activities that are moving the needle, and where can I buy back some time? So that's a pretty fascinating concept.
And I've never been like one to focus on like, what do I cut out? It's just been kind of cut out. And I just said, what are the things I have to do? What are the must do's? If I just do those things, just naturally, those other things just kind of, I don't know, they just kind of wash away.
Yeah, that makes sense. So on the family front, one thing that's always blown me away about you is, and you can just go look at your Instagram page, but the experiences that you're exposing your kids to. I think like you can just scroll through the last like 15 posts and see like teaching your twins, like you're building stuff with power tools, you're building torches, fishing. I think you guys bought a beehive and beekeeper gear and taught them how to do that. Wake surfing, mountain biking, all sorts of stuff. So what is your thought process just around creating experiences and memories with them? Because it seems like you do just an amazing job of exposing them to a lot of just kind of cool experiences.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate to kind of have those experiences. But I personally, I learned a lot from doing. I learned from, having my hands on, very tactile. You could tell me something and I'd remember, some portion of it, but if I go and do it myself, I'm going to learn more. So I think it probably comes from that just immersive style of learning and, being part of stuff. And I think education and learning is everywhere. It's not, not done in a textbook or in a school. Those are great things, but every opportunity, if you look at it, there's math, there's science, there's history everywhere you are. And I think all those things, building a cornhole set with the boys is like, okay, we're just going to do this because it's winter and we're bored and we're going to go build a cornhole set. But then you realize, okay, I actually have to learn some geometry. I have to learn how to follow instructions. I got to figure out how to build a cornhole set. So let's watch some YouTube videos and see how guys do it. Let's learn how to use a jigsaw and what a sander, so you learn all these things and you learn about math and measuring and you realize, wow, that wasn't just building a cornhole set. That was a lesson in like every subject you could teach in school. And then at the end of it, you get some recess and get to play cornhole and look back on the memory of, hey, remember when we made those in the garage and, during the height of COVID. So I just think about it that way. It's fun and it's also immersive and it's educational.
Yeah, no, and you're right. Every time that you bring those boards out, they're going to remember that and they're going to be so proud to have had a hand in building those. So that's pretty awesome.
It's so cool.
What's your motivation behind being such an engaged and, seemingly intentional dad? Because that's again, just one of the things that even just talking through those things that you've done in your approach to building a cornhole set and your thought process, like you could tell you're not just stumbling upon these things. You're really putting some intention behind it. So what's your motivation to kind of show up that way for your kids?
I mean, I see it as a gift. It's like, I want to be there, I don't see it as like where else would I want to be? Those are that's my blood and, sweat, and that's my flesh and blood, those guys. And I love them and I want to be with them. It's like being with them is a total gift to me. I don't see it as a duty in any way. The get to versus have to mentality. Like the fact that I get to be with them is how I approach it. I get to change their diapers. I get to hold them in the night when they're feeling sick. They get to sleep on my chest if they're not feeling good. Like those are gifts. They're not like an interruption to whatever I had planned. That's how I think about it. And then just kind of along those same lines, like I don't know where it comes from. Someone shared a stat with me that like 90% of the time with your kids is, before they're 18. And then, 10% of the rest of their life is from then on. So it's really, there's a small window of time. It seems like it's going on forever when they're young and they're not sleeping through the night, but there's a small window where you actually get to be with them. And I just want to make the most of that. I want to squeeze as much juice out of that and be, one of the main primary influencers in their life. So, orchestrating that and being there for them is just how I think about it, how Nancy and I really both think about it.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about kind of your approach. You mentioned Nancy, but just kind of your thoughts around your marriage and the kind of joint approach to parenting and the importance that has had for you guys.
Yeah. Well, first of all, she makes me, way better, like teaches me all the things about how to be, a decent dad. I feel like a lot of that comes from her, being the pack leader, in many ways and helping us. But I think a lot of it comes from me focusing on her, our marriage. I think the strength of our marriage is really, really important to the strength of our kids. And the fact that, I focus on Nancy and her goals and her dreams and helping her become the best she can be, I think translates to our relationship. And that, that definitely translates down to the love and the energy that our kids feel. So that's always been a primary focus, is putting Nancy first. Nancy, without my relationship with Nancy and our marriage, there wouldn't be Kai, Luke, and crew. So I think that sometimes, we kind of, lose sight of that and just get so kid focused and so kid dominated. And that can easily kind of become a secondary thing. And we've worked hard to put our relationship, work on each other, know each other, what's driving us, what our goals are, what's important to us, and really make sure we're on the lookout for each other so that we can show up as our best parents. So that's kind of how we've approached it from I think that answers your question, from a joint perspective.
Yeah. No, it does. And have there been specific things or conversations or kind of strategies that you guys have in that approach? Because, it makes a lot of logical sense, I think, and probably will, for me at least, but probably will for some of the listeners as well, have that solid foundation within your relationship in your marriage, your partner, but putting in that into action, I think sometimes can be a little tougher. So are there any insights or wisdom you might pass along that has helped you guys to actively do that?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a great question because, theory sounds nice, but like, what does it look like on the daily? For Nancy, prior to kids, she was big into Ironmans and the triathlon training. And, I know for her that she's her best when she, gets certain workouts that she wants to get done. So I make it a point to know what her workout schedule is and, what she wants to do. And like today, I know that she wants to, go on a hour-long run. So I can show up and make sure that, I know we're communicating and I know, okay, you want to get that in, I can get up early and help with the kids and be with them so you can do your thing. Because I know that if she doesn't, she's going to feel a little off and a little off kilter. So just little things that are important to us and making sure I know that I'm enabling and helping support her in those things that help her be her best. And, for us, for her, especially working out and feeling like good and feeling healthy is a big part of, our marriage and how that trickles into our kids.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, even hearing you just talk about it, I don't know that I've thought of it that way, but it's the same thing with us. And Callie will be the first one to tell you, like, when she gets a good workout in, those are the days she's showing up the best for everybody else around her, when she has that time for herself. And I haven't actively thought about how I can, help make sure that happens. But hearing you say that, I'm starting to think through it. I'm like, look at Nick just putting the effort in to make sure that happens. And then, like you said, the trickle down effect of that is, benefits for her and then everybody else involved and everybody else in the family. So that's an excellent point.
Yeah. Just to kind of go on that a second. And, some people are really good at, like our friend Dave Regula, he's really good about planning the whole week out. They sit down, they go over the whole thing. Like that. We don't do that. We may be like a day or two ahead, maybe a day ahead. So like the day before, maybe we're eating dinner or, kind of wind it down for the night. And I'll say, hey, what's on your schedule tomorrow? What's important? And she'll be like, I'm going to swim for an hour. And I'm like, all right, so I know what she's doing. I know what's important to her. And I make sure that I move things around if need be to make sure she gets it in. Like to me, that's a priority as opposed to just kind of just going through the day and, maybe hoping it happens. I'm like, what can I do to have extreme ownership of making sure I'm doing everything I possibly can to move things around and make sure I'm there for her.
Yeah, that's kind of been our one of those examples of by necessity with COVID and having a 1-year-old at home. 2 days a week, she's home with us, and Callie and I are both working. So we have to sit down. We've realized the night before and say, okay, what do our schedules look like tomorrow? And just being, constantly communicating of if one of us has a call, make sure the other person's schedule, like calendar's blocked off so that, we're not both on calls and somebody's trying to hold the baby.
Yeah.
And so it's just back to the beginning of our conversations. Now it's going to be, all right, once we get past this chapter of life where that's been born out of necessity, keeping that habit in place is going to be, crucial for our success moving forward too, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So what else do you think about when you think about being a great dad? What are other things that really you've learned over the years are really moving the needle with your relationship with your kids?
Yeah, it's different because I think at different ages I'm thinking about different things, but I think one thing I've learned is surrounding ourselves with people who've been ahead of us and who have wisdom that have made a lot of mistakes or have had a lot of success. So look at people who we admire their relationship with their kids or how their kids turned out and say, what did you do? What did you learn? And so I think that's really important, is to kind of seek that wisdom. And we've gotten some of that. And our friend, we helped him kind of like write a little book called 7 Stages of a Man's Life. And since we have 3 little men, there's different things at different stages that are really important. And 0 to 3 is the first stage. And, it's all about trust, and it's all about knowing they'll be there for you and just having like that trust factor, security factor. And, so that's been that's been a big thing. And that they're transitioning from that to like the next stage of life of like observation and boyhood. And, as Cruz and the infant and toddler stage, and, the boys are in observation boyhood, we're kind of looking at different things. Right now with the older boys, it's basic stuff. I'm teaching them about, the basics, shake hands, look people in the eye, do what you say you're going to do, be a man of your word, like basic things like that. And for them right now, they're sponges, man. They're just like soaking up everything. So we're, very intentional about leading by example and knowing that they're going to catch, things are more caught than taught. So if they see us working out, if they see us eating healthy, if they see us, taking care of people and being generous, they're learning those things. They see us taking food to people on Sundays and making a point to, pray for people that are sick or whatever. Like that's the stuff that they're doing at this stage, and they're learning those skills. And, and for Crew, it's just making sure he feels feels safe and feels trusted, and that he knows that we're going to be there for him. So using some of those guiding examples are really, really important, and knowing where the kids are and thinking about who are the kids we're raising. What do we want them to be? What values, what traits, what skills do we want them to have when they're growing up? And so that's kind of how we're thinking about it. And I don't know. I think hopefully we're doing an okay job.
I love that framework. So you said there's 7 stages, right?
Mm-hmm.
What after observation and boyhood, where does it go from there? And I'm super curious.
Yeah,
what the 7 stages are.
Yeah, I'll send you. It's a little ebook too. You can check it out or post it for everybody to download. The next one is really, so our boys are in the observation and boyhood stage, which is ages 4 to 10. And then the next stage is preparation and adolescence, which really goes from 11 to 18. And then it goes to the season of provision and young adult, which is like 18 to 30. And so at each of these stages, he kind of outlines like what are the main character building habits, from like a faith perspective, what's important for them to be establishing at certain points along the way. So, I mean, this isn't like our guidebook, but it's definitely something we reference and look at, and good to know, hey, this is the time where they're learning this. Just like when you build a house, you do certain things in a certain order. And if you have to do it in the wrong order, it's a lot harder to undo and get it right. So
yeah. If you're pouring the concrete at the end for the foundation, you're going to have a wobbly house.
Yeah, you can do it. Like it'll get in there, but man, would have been better to do earlier.
I love that. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing at least where folks can access that, we'll drop that in the show notes to point people in the right direction. And on the business front, I love the question of like what failures or perceived challenges or failures have ultimately led to a breakthrough for you or a success. And I think that's a frequent conversation we hear on, like I said, the business podcast, but I think it's applicable in our personal lives and especially parenting as well. Are there any examples that jump to your mind of things that are, perceived challenges or anything along those lines that you've had to overcome in your fatherhood journey that ultimately have led to you being a better dad?
Oh man. Yeah, there's been a lot of, 3 a.m. Discussions with Nancy about how we should do certain things, which is not the time to discuss parenting strategy. So that's probably been like the biggest you idiot, move that I could think of is, making, middle of the night, we're both tired trying to decide what to do. I remember one time we were coming to the end of nursing the boys, and it was just crazy. And I was trying to give Nancy my thoughts on where we were and what was going to happen, and just total wrong move to talk about things like that. So I think, us being on the same page and having, a lot of respect for making decisions together and not making emotionally charged or sleep deprived decisions, and is something I would advise to people, guys on the journey is, don't make a 2 a.m., a 3 a.m. decision. You need to be a leader, but at the same time, a lot of times you just lean on, mom, because she knows. They have intuition that's way better than us, and they're more in tune with a lot of things that the kids need. And so a lot of times, we want to jump in and be that man and take charge and, be the leader, provider, protector. But a lot of times, I think it's important for us to yield to our wives and realize that they know a lot more than we know. And those are some of the failures I think about, some of the middle of the night, like arguments. I'm like, I can't believe we got into an argument, 3 a.m. here when this was totally unnecessary. I'm not sure if you've been there, Brad, but
yeah. Timing over topic, I think is an important takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely, I should say I continue to learn that lesson of knowing when to bring up certain things. And, basically at night's a bad time. In the middle of the night, certainly not ideal. And Callie's not a morning person. So before 10 a.m., let's just table this till lunchtime.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my
gosh. But you bring up a really good point there too about, especially I think is relevant for this show because a lot of the folks listening are really driven dads, motivated guys, and leaders at whatever that they do or want to be leaders at least. And we get confused, as boneheaded men can, with that idea of being the leader of the family, where in actuality sometimes it might just be our ego telling us, you got to step up here, take charge, and be the alpha, when mom actually is the one who's the more capable decision maker and like you said, has that mother intuition. That's something, early on in fatherhood, I had to learn and continue to learn. But is that something that over time you've gotten better at, or you coached other men on? I really want to, for my own personal betterment, dive into that topic a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know that I have, the answer for sure. I'm obviously still on the journey and learning every day. But I think there's times where you definitely need to be, the leader, and you need to take charge of certain things and take care of certain responsibilities. I think to lead, lead, protect, provide, be the, from a, faith perspective, be the spiritual leader, be a large influence in their life. So I think it's just knowing, I think it's doing as much in tandem with, for me, for doing as much with Nancy as possible, and knowing, we every relationship's different. Everybody has different skills and how their family unit works together. I know there's certain things that, Nancy and I joke, there's we say there's jobs, there's just things that she does, and she does an amazing job, and she takes care of them and she owns them. And I know that there's things that she has weaknesses that I have strengths. So everybody's different, but I try to offset her and she offsets me, and we try to, play to our strengths to lead our family to our best. But the things that, she counts on me for, I gotta own, and they may not be glorious, but there's things that she knows that she needs from me, and vice versa. And so I think it's important to kind of know your mate and know, hey, that's your area, you own that, I'll support you in that, but these are things that you count on me for, and I want to do them excellent, and kind of know your lane. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but I think everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And how they work together.
I think that's a really good insight. We all are different. Every relationship's different, because I think it's just challenging to find that line and between being for driven men, being the leader in your family, but also yielding when it's appropriate to do so. I think it's a learned skill to dance that dance with your partner. So I think we're all, trying to get better at it. I'm sure. I know I am, at least, speaking from a sample size of one.
Well, and I think to that point too, there's obviously certain things the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so to be the leader, the best leader that I can, I have to be taking care of myself. And I need to make sure that Nancy's taking care of herself, like I mentioned earlier, but I need to make sure that I am surrounding myself with awesome people who are helping me become a great leader in business and at home, and father to my kids, and being in the best shape that I can be in, and eating healthy, and filling my mind and my heart with good stuff. That's helping me become the best that I could be. That's taking myself and making sure that my cup is full, because if it's empty, my kids they're not getting the overflow that they deserve, and my wife is not getting the overflow that she deserves. So I think, being intentional, going back to the ISI, the 5 F's, making sure that I'm excelling in those areas and touching on those, and, not just on cruise control. I think that's some of the danger, is just coasting and cruise control and making sure that I'm pouring into myself and, not just getting by, but growing. Because if I'm not growing, it's going to be tough for me to be the leader that you're talking about. It's tough to be the best for my kids if I'm kind of like going downhill. So it's really, I just think about that and just making sure my cup is full, not in a selfish way, but in a leader way.
Yeah, no, I totally see that. I mean, it's that classic airplane oxygen mask of if you put your oxygen mask on so you can, not pass out and help everybody around you. It's not selfish. It's actually the thing that's going to benefit the most people. Let's talk about ISI a little bit and the five F's, because I don't know that we actually spelled out what those are. Can you share a little bit about the ISI philosophy and what that consists of?
Yeah. So just to give a little background to it, the five F's they stand for faith, family and relationships, faculty, which is your work, your finances, and your fitness. And we distilled those down because it's like, what are the major 5 things that guys need to kind of keep in check? What are the major buckets? I mean, there's certainly more important, things that you could kind of subsets of those that you could kind of go into, but those are what we deemed as the 5 F's. And I've been part of lots of coaching organizations and trainings and books. I've just always enjoyed learning and being part of different things. And everywhere it went is like, this is kind of what you could distill it down to. And, the main things, these are the main things that you need to keep right. And if you have an area that is out of balance, which we all will at all points in our life, there'll be, no one's ever like full on all 5 of those F's. So we created this organization to help men and women make sure that they're achieving excellence in those 5 F's. And we do it through a variety of ways: podcast, events, retreats, blogs, all the different ways you might connect with an organization to help people know what does it mean to, and almost all of it is very faith inspired. So if you put faith at the center, which is for me is really important to me in my life, and that's kind of how we teach on it. But if you put faith at the center of your fitness, what does that look like? If you put faith at your marriage and your relationships, what does that look like? And so it's giving guys tools and wisdom and practical things that they can do to become their best in each of those areas. Because we find that it's usually one of those areas when you lose track of one of those, your finances, for example, things start to unravel in your life. And if you can do a good job of keeping them trued up and you're kind of your wheel as true as possible, a lot of things, you'll avoid a lot of heartache in your life, and you'll be living an abundant life that is promised to you. Yeah,
and I think you mentioned something that I think really key there, that all of us will be out of balance in some of those areas at different times in our lives, and so the key is coming back and really pouring into those areas where you recognize that you might be out of balance at that point in time, in that season of life. Mm-hmm. How do you have a process for kind of evaluating the different areas of your life at different time to make sure that one's not being neglected too much, or if you do get off balanced in one area, that you're circling back to it and making sure you're putting a little more focus there?
For sure. There's some everybody kind of has a different way of how they do that. For me, I really just stop, and pause and kind of reflect fairly deeply once a quarter on those 5 F's, and just kind of, where am I at with my fitness, with my faith, with my family and relationships? Kind of go around the wheel and just give myself a kind of an honest assessment. I've also built in some things to kind of give me some benchmarks along the way. Like, for instance, going and doing a bod pod, or a body fat testing once a quarter to say, I'm maintaining or improving upon where I want to go. So at the first part is just, I think the most simple thing is sit down with a piece of paper and just kind of give myself an assessment. We do have some tools on the ISI site that give people some ideas and some better prompts of each of those F's, so you can kind of give yourself a grade, but also see what excellence could look like in each of those F's as well. So you could say, we have a description of, if you're looking at your finances, what does it look like if you're kind of a 1 out of 5? What if you're a 5 out of 5? What does that look like? And you can kind of rate yourself and assess yourself and see, what does success look like? So I think it looks a little different from everybody, and based on your personality style, how you do things. But hopefully those are a few little ways that we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll link that up, the ISI site, and some of those resources too, so people can check that out. But what advice would you have for, either yourself, if you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice right when the twins were entering the picture, or even just a new dad who's just getting started on the journey of fatherhood? Is there any wisdom you'd pass down?
Oof. It's a good question. I guess it's hard to say because I'm thankful for all of it, but yeah, knowing more going into it, I think would have maybe prevented some heartache along the way. I think the wisdom that I would give is to not be afraid to ask for help, ask for wisdom, ask for people. People want to help you. People want to support you more than you think they do. And, so asking people for advice, listening to a podcast like this for people who have been at further stages, like there's no reason to not learn from people. I don't think I really thought about like the kind of father I wanted to be, just started doing, and then, started to learn by, mistake or success, and getting like real life feedback on how things were going. But I really didn't go into fatherhood with a game plan at all. I wasn't thinking about what kind of father I wanted to be, what kind of, husband I wanted to be to Nancy, and our relationship with the boy. I really wasn't really forward thinking about it at all. I just kind of started doing. So I think getting wisdom from others and kind of really getting a vision for the kind of dad I wanted to be. Thankfully, I don't know, I feel like we're doing an okay job with our kids. There's a lot to learn still, but I think I'm starting to develop that now. And I think having that earlier on would have been helpful. And most importantly, don't have 3 a.m. discussions. Timing, you said timing over topic. That's a big
I love
one.
it. I think one thing I've taken away just from the short time that I've been doing this show is that you're absolutely right. Guys are more than willing to, go deep, especially when it comes to being dads, because I think it just opens up this whole new chapter of your life, this whole new piece of your being when you do become a father. And you can tell the guys who are really intentional about it, and the guys who really place priority on being there for their family. And those are the type of guys that, what I'm learning is, if you want to talk to them about being dads, even in the case of this show, some of the busiest people I can possibly try to find, they're open to it. And these are guys who, I would never get on their calendar if I wanted to talk to them about their business or something. But when it comes to this topic of fatherhood, they want to pass down what they've learned, and they want to share some of those insights, because it's just this deep connection between just us as humans, and specifically as dads, that I think is a whole new level of, that's different than anything I've experienced before. So one thing I'm hoping I can just do with this show is open some people up to being more vulnerable in their journeys, and just we're leaning into other men and just trusting them and asking for help. Because what I'm realizing is, just like you said, guys are willing to do it. You just have to be willing to ask and sometimes initiate the conversation.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I feel very fortunate to have had a few people that, have, poured into me. And it's as simple as, hey, can we just go on like a little walk and talk, and just go for, 15, half an hour walk, and just chat about what's going on. And, it's amazing how that can give you perspective or change your path just a little bit and put you in a better spot. And I mean, I'm always willing to do that. I would cancel a meeting or cancel something else if any one of my, dad friends or buddies was in need. Even if it was someone I didn't know, like someone who's going to have twins. And I'm like, man, here's something I can do to help you. I feel very fortunate to have had that in my life, and totally willing to help others. And I do think we tend to kind of man up, maybe more than we need to. Not that we shouldn't man up, but I think we should be willing to ask for help, because it's out there for sure.
Yeah. I talked to Jason Belmonte last week, who's the world's best bowler. And he's an Australian guy, and this topic came up too. And so he calls it, talking to your mates, which
Yeah.
I loved.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So Nick, I mean, thanks so much for spending a little time chatting with us on the topic of fatherhood. Where we've got some links we'll post up here, ISI, as well as the book that you had mentioned with the seven stages of manhood. Anything else you'd recommend people check out? Anywhere else you'd point them to find you, or if they want to check out what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to help anybody if I can. I'm on all the things, the LinkedIn's and Facebook, Instagram. So if I can be of help personally, let me know. Definitely glad to help anybody that's out there and connect in any way. And I don't know. I mean, things that I'm really enjoying right now. As I mentioned to you earlier, I'm reading the Ben Greenfield, The Fit Soul book, which I found there's some really good chapters in there about fatherhood and some things that are really standing out to me. He has twin boys, ironically, too, that are like 11 or 12 now. So there's some things he learned along the way that I'm, learning from their journey. And it's been a pleasure being with you. I think you're doing an awesome job, man, with being so new to the game, and I love what you're doing. And I've enjoyed all the episodes, and super thankful to be able to connect with you today.
I appreciate it. And we're starting to get a little more active on Clubhouse. So I'll have to get you on there at some point for a chat on Clubhouse, and then people can connect with you there too, because I'm sure people want to ask you some questions too. So we'll get you on for a chat here soon.
Love it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Nick, thanks for being here, brother. I won't waste any more of your time, but thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it, man. Take it easy.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Thanks so much for being here and listening. If you have been enjoying the podcast and want to help support it, I would be eternally grateful if you would leave a quick rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. Also, please share this one with a dad you know. It's a great way to show them that you're thinking of them. And let's be real, all of us in this brotherhood of fatherhood could use some support and resources. I mean, none of us really know what we're doing when we become dads, which is exactly why I started this show. I personally wanted to learn from guys who have figured some of this stuff out and thought sharing those conversations could be a service to any other dads in the same boat. So I appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Now get back to your family and just be the best dad that you can be today.